Advertising Agency made the government to be a particular player and not a regulator in the industry of advertisement in this industry, Mr. Speaker. Where young people can be able to get most jobs in this country, Mr. Speaker, because of the height of what we call technology and digital understanding, Mr. Speaker, is on digital marketing. And, Mr. Speaker, the government is running a lot of money that goes in the pocket of individuals in GAA deals to the extent, Mr. Speaker, that today, even if you look at the mainstream media, Mr. Speaker, and advertisement agencies in this country, Mr. Speaker, they are collapsing because GAA owes them tons of money that people have paid to themselves, and it's not possible for young people to be able to get those opportunities. If you look, Mr. Speaker, for instance, national media is going to fire, actually has fired 180 young people. And yes, GAA owes national media 3 billion, Mr. Speaker. If you look at Standard, Mr. Speaker, where young people have been nurtured to the extent that they can be elite digital advertisers, Mr. Speaker, you will find that in Standard, for the last almost 7 months, Mr. Speaker, I've got young people there, they interview us every day. If you go to Vibes Radio, they interview us. If you go to Spice FM, young people there interview us. If you go to the mainstream TV station, young people interview us, Mr. Speaker. For 7 months, they have not even been paid 5,000 shillings, Mr. Speaker, because they go without money because GAA owes the money that has been paid under the watch of Parliament and under the watch of the entire cabinet, Mr. Speaker. I can go on and show you about 2 billion that you see GAA owing the entire media space where young people and creatives should be excelling, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, my heart was pouring out because I saw interns sleeping outside Afia House, Mr. Speaker. In this house, we have enabled the passing of NHIF in this house, Mr. Speaker. And if you look at the way NHIF used to work, Mr. Speaker, you can see how Parliament and the Cabinet have conspired against Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, to do businesses. You know very well that when we did have the national, the NHIF, the NHIF that was working, Mr. Speaker, it used to be that money would be collected from the public. NHIF would then go and have a department that makes payments for all Kenyans when they are sick. That even necessitated the fact that NHIF had to have a system of clearing those payments, Mr. Speaker. And yet, in these two houses, Mr. Speaker, of Parliament, we passed NHIF. How is NHIF operating, Mr. Speaker? Where NHIF used to have 24 billion that was saved, Mr. Speaker, to the extent that they could be able to buy T-bills so that when they don't collect money, they could be able to pay for people in this country, Mr. Speaker. Today, that entire 24 billion is missing, Mr. Speaker. And to the extent that we know very well, and I hope the Senator of Marsabit is here, that NHIF was forced to go and procure a system that they don't need because they procured services of a private entity to be able to offer insurance. NHIF still went and spent 10 billion to procure a system that they don't need, that failed when it was stated in Marsabit, Mr. Speaker. This is a matter of public knowledge. And all these are deals and businesses, so that even Parliament has become a place of not bill making, but deal making, Mr. Speaker. So we must face these challenges as a people, Mr. Speaker. And one thing that the President must be able to confront, Mr. Speaker, is that this vested interest in government must stop and allow for private sector to be able to create jobs that are decent for young people, because government will just never be able to create enough jobs. And this is confronting the President of the nation, that because of the magnitude of the crisis that we are seeing today, Mr. Speaker, the response must also be the same. It goes without saying that in physics, they say that one action must have an equal reaction to it, Mr. Speaker. It cannot be that we are going to talk about just dialogues for the sake of dialogue, Mr. Speaker. This dialogue must be on specific issues that are denying young people economic opportunities in this country, so that those issues are sorted for once and for all. And at the heart of those issues, Mr. Speaker, is the ministers or cabinet secretaries that we have in this country today. Mr. Speaker, the president must confront this reality that either you die with these few individuals or you die with the entire country. It must matter to the president to be able to give young people an explanation. Why is it so difficult, at least in areas where ministers who are extremely known in the country to have done economic crimes to leave cabinet, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, what is there, Mr. Speaker, to explain to the country why the CS of Agriculture must continue being a CS, Mr. Speaker? And Mr. Speaker, this must come all the way to the House so that the issue you have been fighting in this House on separation of powers, whereby we need Parliament to be able to play an oversight role and have a proper autonomous and independence operation between it and the executive, must also happen, Mr. Speaker. And one of the radical ways that the president can be able to help this country is to rethink the entire leadership of the National Assembly in particular, Mr. Speaker. Because the National Assembly under our Constitution has got all powers to deal with money bills, Mr. Speaker. And that is why it becomes very easy for the National Assembly to be able to mix personal interest and public interest, Mr. Speaker. I have checked at the quality of leadership in this House, Mr. Speaker. If you look at Senior Senator Boni Alwale, Mr. Speaker, as the majority whip in this House, Mr. Speaker, at what point do you compare Senior Boni Alwale with Honorable Osoro in the National Assembly, where Honorable Osoro is going to look at issues of budget and finance bills in this country, Mr. Speaker? When you look at our majority leader here, Mr. Speaker, the gentleman called Arun Cheriot, who has actually brought this bill, Mr. Speaker, the depth and the passion for the country, Mr. Speaker, at what point do you compare Arun Cheriot with Kimani Ichungwah in National Assembly and then say that we're going to sober assembly, Mr. Speaker? When you look at people like Deputy Majority Leader, Mr. Speaker, Senator Tabitha Keroche, a lady of valor and towering spirit of entrepreneurship, Mr. Speaker, who has run serious business that we have seen in this country, Mr. Speaker. At what point, Mr. Speaker, do you compare? I'm even lost of words, Mr. Speaker. I'm lost of words, Mr. Speaker. The president must confront this reality. We must see as young people a shake-up in National Assembly that has basically enabled 100% of the problem of not listening to the young people of this country, Mr. Speaker. And we must see that shake-up also, Mr. Speaker, in the
2 minutes to wind up your thoughts.
Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, I also want to invite Gen Zs to a conversation that we are a constitutional democracy. The country must run. The country must be governed. Do not be tempted that in the foot of this wonderful movement that you have had, then you get compromised in traditional politics where people can end up hijacking this kind of movements for popularity's sake and make it either tribal or just pure popularity, Mr. Speaker. I've seen you vilify the president alone, but you should know that under our Constitution, we have got the presidency. The president is not the only person who is liable. Even the deputy president is liable and must also be called to order, Mr. Speaker. It is the deputy president of this country who first saw the people of this country not as people, but as goods and services, Mr. Speaker. He saw the people of this country as commodities and made us a country that was made to be believed to be a company, not a country, Mr. Speaker. And he saw us as Rabuon, Mr. Speaker. He saw us as Muguka. He saw us as Waru. He saw us as Omena, Mr. Speaker. And now, the commodities are speaking. He must know. The commodities are speaking. The Rabuon have started speaking. The Omena have started speaking. And he must now realize that this country is not a company where we talk about shareholding and state-made Kenyans versus self-made Kenyans, but we are a country of people of value, and even him must be held to account so that we do not start a place whereby people want to start fighting Kikuyus the other side or fighting Somalis this other side, because all those people are also a part of the recipe of why this country works. Because I've lived
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to join my colleagues also to discuss the situation in the country. And first and foremost, I want to send my heartfelt condolences to all the bereaved families and wish them solace in their own hearts. And for those who are injured, I wish them a quick recovery. Unfortunately, whatever has happened in this country in a very short time has shown me and really made me to have a very heavy heart. Honorable Speaker, for those of us who live in the borderlines, we know much about what happens in our neighborhoods. You have seen what happened in Somalia. 30 years, 35 years down the line, up to now, it has never settled. You have seen what is happening in Congo, what is happening in Sudan, what is happening in Ethiopia. So the kind of things that is now happening in this country is actually worrying. It is right for the young men and women, the so-called Gen Zs, to do what they have done. Because for many in this country, kings are actually very resilient people, very patient, people who understand, people who obey the law. But when the things are done and